Well, thank you for giving me the time to talk about something which is an issue that I'm really burning for, and that is to, hopefully, this will end with that you will feel that if I had been there, not me, you would say I could have done the very same thing. If I reached that goal, then I really have achieved what I've set as an objective for today. So the title here is From Idea to Reality, and how hard can it really be? And what I'm trying to do here is to take entrepreneurship into a corporation, an existing company. And normally we talk about intrapreneurship, because that is also a way of being an entrepreneur. And many people are actually sitting within organizations today and are wondering whether their little idea is worth testing or whether it can carry some weight and fly. So here we go. When we look at some major companies today, we see the sign on the roof for an advertisement. We sometimes get very impressed. Some companies coming, some companies are going. I'm sure that many of you have seen Kodak, that doesn't really exist any longer. But there are new companies coming all around. And the thing is that when we get impressed about the organization, the structure, the personnel, whatever it is, we always tend to forget that there was one founding little idea. One day, somewhere in the world, somebody came up with something. And it may not have been a paperclip, and paperclip may not have gained so much money or reward for the inventor of that. But in itself, I think it proves the idea of something that was a need. We solved a problem and was quite simple enough for anyone actually to come up with the idea. This story is about another rather simple idea. But the product we are going to talk about is probably the largest product in its category in the world today. And it's something which is linked to the heel. Now, anyone who has a problem with the heel, and in this particular case, blisters, would go back 30, 40 years and say there's always been something around there. And everyone knows that if you had a blister, you put a Band-Aid on. And that solved, people felt, the problem. Band-Aid at the time when I was actually into the business, that was something like 20 euro. The thing that I was trying to launch was 10 kronor each, and people said that was insane. But it has proven to be right. So I was, at the time, based here in Gothenburg. I was a young, proud general manager, newly appointed for a joint venture between Beiersdorf, who was based in Kungsbacka at the time, and a Danish company called Coloplast. Coloplast went to the stock exchange in 1984 with a market cap of 1 billion Danish. Today it's worth 110 billion. I'm not going to say that I'm the reason for that, but it just proves that good ideas also can carry weight. The good thing with Coloplast and Beiersdorf was that these two companies, who were the shareholder of the joint venture that I happened to be the head of, we were 5 persons. And I was recruited to sell the ostomy bags that Coloplast was producing. Now, at that time, I was running a lot. Some people claim they cannot believe that, but it's true, I did. And I spent a lot of my time up on the east side of Gothenburg in the Delsjö area, and was basically knowledge about all the tracks. But I had a big problem. Each time when I felt that I was peaking in my training, or when I changed sport shoes, I got blisters, and it was so annoying. And even worse was when I spent my money on going to a winter resort, and I found out that half of the time I spent on the hotel because the ski shoes or the boots were not precisely fitted for my shoes, and I had a problem. And that created an idea for me that people who really were eager to actually do the exercise, they were probably prepared to pay a little bit more than what actually was the existing product. Coloplast at the time was selling ostomy bags, and the thing was that the bags at the time were very sticky and created a problem for people who had to carry them daily. So they invented a hydrocolloid product, which was quite sticky. That is the sheet that you can see here, as well as an absorption capacity. So basically you could say it was a sort of second skin. And it was quite resistant. If you when you took it off, you didn't have a kind of maceration that you can see on the skin with, when it's white, etc. That was not the case. And Beiersdorf had the best Band-Aid in the world, the tapes. So I was wondering whether it was possible to do something with these two components. And it was. It's not my foot, but it's my idea. The thing was that I started cutting this little ostomy sheet into pieces and then framed it with Beiersdorf's Leukoplast. And I did it over and over again for half a year, and I found out that it worked exceptionally well. Now, how do you do? I think I was 27 or something like that. When you're just recruited in a company, you're devoted to sell a product which is an ostomy bag, and you suddenly come up with an idea which is totally outside the business scope of the company that you are hired by. And this was really something that puzzled me for a very long period of time. Now, in Gothenburg at the time, there was a coast artery number 4 out in Långedrag. And I happened to be one day sitting on the train. This is really what happened. On the train, going from Stockholm back to Gothenburg, and from an exhibition up there. And next to me, there was a male nurse sitting. And he happened also to be interested in sports, and particularly running. He was the head of the nursery at Kustarteriet number 4 in Långedrag. So we started talking about that, and I think somewhere close to one of the stations, halfway through the journey, I said, Jesus Christ, perhaps the military is the right place to test this. And when we actually entered the central station in Gothenburg, we shook hands, and we had already agreed that we were going to do a clinical trial. I'd never done a clinical trial in my life. I didn't know exactly what to do. But we agreed that this was a very important mission for the whole nation, I think. So we had to improve the status for the military, and this could be the new weapon against the Russians or something like that. So we fine-tuned this little scheme, and we prepared for the 30 kilometers training that the soldiers were going to do. We tested back and forward the scope of the scheme, and came up with something which was quite, I think, eligible. Now, I also, of course, felt that this has to be documented. Those of you who are too young to understand what this is a Polaroid camera. And it's from the 1983 year version. I still have it in my home. It's the original. I went down to something called Östra Nordstan, and I bought this privately. I didn't dare to spend the company money at that stage. And together with that and the scheme, we set sail and started with an idea that the soldiers should be divided into different categories. Some have to explain what they were going to do, etc., how they were banding and preparing themselves for the trip. Some had Band-Aid of rather simple versions, and some had this. And we also had a tent. This is a picture out from Partille. And I was sitting in this tent, and I took photos of the most ugly feet I've ever seen in my life. Up and down, and I really documented everything. And then finally, of course, people also had to fill in the scheme and answer the questions. Now, once when all that was in place, and we had sort of taken care of some of the changed products that we had, I put them all in one shoebox. I cannot say that was Aquador or something like that, or this taste, but it was a shoe bag with all the tested products. And I think I took a couple of days, and I saw the result of the scheme, and felt that this is really going to make it. Now, what the hell do you do when you're sitting with this and you think, I have a great idea here? I've been in the company for 9 months. They recruited me primarily for this, only for this thing of ostomy bags. And I need to talk with the CEO and say, I have a great idea. Will I survive? So I phoned up after 3 days the CEO, and I said, Folmer was his name. He was in Espegade, just outside Helsingør. I said, I have an idea I'd like to present. He was very keen to find out. I refused to explain because I said, if I tell him, he will never allow me to come. So I actually went down. I can still remember the morning I drove down the E6 and took the ferry at the time over to Helsingør, and then came into his office. It was a big office with a big desk, and he was sitting there, and it felt like a mile to walk up to him. And he said, "Oh, Lars, what do you have?" And I placed this box in front of me and took one step back, and he opened it and put down his note. I thought he was going to die. I thought he was going to die. And I felt that this is not really my day. And then he came up, and he was red like, a crayfish or something like that in August. And he said, "What is this?" And I didn't even breathe. I spoke for 10 minutes without breathing. I did all the selling I could in my life. And then he looked up again and said, "Well, don't call us, we call you. I will reflect on this." And then the days went, and I went back, and I felt that, perhaps this was a little bit over-exaggerating things. Perhaps I should have waited at least a year or something like that. But he came back. And this is a crucial moment in the whole product's history. And he said, "Lars, this is totally outside the company's scope. We have nothing to do with sport. We are not into the consumer business whatsoever. Prove to me that there is a market." I said, "Jesus Christ, how could I sell it to my friends, or how do I do it?" But I took the chance, and I said, "All right, fine. We have this sheet, and am I going to run around and cut it and try to explain how it should be placed, etc.? No, I went out. This is a picture from, at least you should simplify, the picture of nurses in the military when they had their yearly seminar up in Skellefteå. And I went there, and I presented myself as the expert of blisters. And Jesus Christ, I went through the skin and the heel and what happened and how many people were suffering from this and what this could mean if we were attacked from Russia or something like that. And they had to do a lot to prepare ourselves. So basically, that was the start. The second thing was I bought a zip bag, and I made a very simple, I had no budget, I had a very simple sort of leaflet around it and placed the very same sheet in a little bag. And then I told Apoteket AB, which I had good relations with, at least at that stage, and said, "We now are going to test whether this unique product, which is a blister sheet, which hadn't the name which it held later, if that could be sold. And by the way, the price is at least 4 times what the exact sheet, if you bought it as an ostomate, is going to be. 4 times. That year, it happened to be that Apoteket launched their magazine. I think they have it, Apoteket, 400,000 issues each time. And I convinced the auditor that this is the unique thing for you to be first in the world to explain how people can save their feet, what it really means that we are the first nation that have this product on the market. And he took it. So we had a full coverage of this new product, which was really a test marketing, I could say. And later on, I went up to the Vasaloppet and I explained to them that if they're really going to tell people that they can do all these 90 kilometers, they should have something to save their feet with, as well as all the marathons of this world. I could go back and say to my boss, there is a market, and that was the launch of Compete. That is a several billion product today. The idea here is, of course, then, how do you convince your boss that we need to have a giant budget here, we are not a consumer market company, and etc. So he said, well, all right, well, we start, you test, of course, by the way, you can keep your job, and by the way, you're also project manager for this new thing. We don't talk too much about it. And I had to find a package. And we didn't have money enough to create a package. And then I saw in a hotel room a sewing kit, you know, the little thing on the shelf where you have to have a needle and some buttons and things like that. And I felt that that is probably the right size. So in reverse of what you normally do, you do the product and then you design it with a package. I took a package and then we designed the product. So it fitted into the product, which was very strange, but it worked. And this is the way it looked. It's not the most fancy thing, but it worked. And the products were handmade, by the way, because we didn't have any machinery for that. Later on, we actually managed to get some money so we could make a point of sales material. And I sort of persuade some people up in Åre, the pharmacy, one hotel, and one little shop selling skis and renting out. And I'm not going to give you the name of that place, but I can still remember when I went in there and told them that this is an interesting thing. You can actually have this, and we're just checking the prices here. And they asked me, what is the price? And I said, well, it's something like 40 kronor or something like that. And they, all right, we're going to tell. And when I was walking out, I actually saw some skis. So I went around the shelf there and stood. And then the other guy said, there was an idiot in here. Do you think what he said? He thinks we could sell this for 8 times the price of what we're actually doing. I still think that it's a thing I will do one day, walk into that shop and say, listen, there was something here. Nevertheless, we produced then later on machinery equipment, etc. So we started producing a more subtle and more interesting product, which became a consumer product. We had the first. This is not for needles and bottoms and things. This is a true design package for the product itself. So we did it the reverse. And later on, it became a product range. And I think most of you, if you walk into a pharmacy or any kind of similar shop today, you will find quite a nice shelf everywhere in the world. So,
skavsår håller redan på att stoppa dig. Glöm vanliga plåster. Compede skavsårsplåster innehåller en aktiv gel som tar bort smärtan hela dagen. Bekväm i högklackat när du vill. Compede skavsårsplåster. Låt inget stoppa dig.
Win a trip to New York. Experience Sex and the City 2 for real at compete.se.
So a final word, really, as I said, my ambition was to try to bring over the fact that many of us, many people, from time to time, actually carries an idea, but they feel that it may not be worth it. They may also be sitting inside a company and reflecting whether they should take a step forward and find an idea. If they are in an environment which is sort of open for alien attitudes, there may well be a situation like this. And the idea, I hope you feel it yourself, you could have done it yourself. It's not more complicated than that. Thank you.
I wish you were right. So Lars, you are chairman of the reference group in the Entreprenörskapsutredningen, and you are also ordförande in the Entreprenörskapsforum.
Yes.
What you talked about here is a lot about intrapreneurship,
yes.
And subsequent to that you have been through entrepreneurship. And I think perhaps you can give us a perspective of how you experience the differences, the different type of challenges, what it takes from a corporation to support intrapreneurship, which I think a lot of companies is really bad in doing. So that is something I'm keen to hear more about.
No, but I think you're pointing at something which is very important. If you look at the entrepreneur, I mean the person, the soul, the idea of starting something and trying to achieve what you have in mind is of course filled with a number of challenges in terms of financing matters to pursue. Sorry? Challenges in terms of financing, trying to find networks, trying to find distribution channels, a number of things that is of a more sort of administrative structural point of view. And that in itself for many people who only carries the idea will become the major obstacle. Thanks God today there are many sort of hubs where you can find support and help and venture capital and sort of different structures that is willing to support you in that part of the process. And I think that is necessary because many people do have a great idea, but they do not have the skill or experience to carried through in that period of time which is necessary to make it fly. And they probably know that by themselves. So therefore they are hesitating. They may not be hesitating for the idea. The reverse situation when you talk about entrepreneurship is that to do that, it takes a specific attitude in a corporation. I wouldn't say that Coloplast at the time when I was there was sort of specifically interested in to have a number of rebels and wildcards and people like me running around and doing different things, because that would have spoiled the situation. But the corporation had a CEO who saw the idea and understood that there was an element of possibility in this, and probably something that could be something that would add into new business areas for the company. As well, which I think is an important thing here, is that the signal internally to the corporation and to all the other employees that we would like you to take a step forward. We would like you to try to challenge what we actually are doing. We would like you to come up with new ideas. It's welcome.
And did Coloplast get the part of the fantastic success here? Because, I mean, they had the underlying technology, as I understand.
Yeah, exactly. And they had the underlying technology. They had a sort of medical reputation which sort of supported the product because it has that sort of extra dimension into it in the hydrocolloid system. But Coloplast lacked all the experience of consumer marketing, which is a totally different
Which you
problem.
also did.
Also did, absolutely. I learned.
And before we open up to the audience, I have one more question. I mean, entrepreneurship in Sweden, there has been this, talk about options for staff recruiting. The incitament structure for entrepreneurs it sucks, basically, if you compare to some other countries.
Yes.
And I know your report will be made available soon, but could you leak a bit? I mean,
leak a little bit. Well, I think that the report in its structure, you should not tell anyone outside this room. The report in its structure is very much based on the fact that society is going through a fundamental change. We don't really understand how big that change is in terms of what will jobs, creation of jobs, etc., be in the future. I think that what will happen is that you will find a totally different scenario, and there must be a chance for people who are in a situation where they will start up new jobs, where they will divide, they will run into certain structures in terms of investing activities, etc., etc. And we have to support that. So that is the sort of framework, the geographic we are moving into. What we need to do, which Sweden has been exceptionally good, go back and see all the big companies we have. They have been built by entrepreneurs, but they have also had a chance to build that structure in a sort of friendly society in terms of creation of jobs and big business. And what we need to do is to make sure that all the obstacles, all the thresholds, all the problems that is facing all these fantastic entrepreneurs who fight every day for their little company, who may be mid-sized and even be bigger than that, that they are not burdened with all the mechanisms that are working against them in terms of tax planning, in terms of employment regulation systems, and God knows what. And we have a very big company attitude within society as well as amongst the authorities. And that has to change. And if you ask me for an underlying theme in the report, I would say that that is the direction. This has to change. And if we don't, we will lose out, no doubt about that. And then, of course, there is a number of suggestions of things that should be changed.
So I know there is a lot of people who are where you were many years ago. So are there any questions to Lars here?
There were several. Should we start in the back up there? Please. Is there a microphone to?
Who needed the mic? Hands up.
Anyone up with a hand? So the mic is there.
No question. There is a question. Anders. No, I saw you wave. Come on.
Come on.
You must have a question. You have been going from big pharma, now you are in the small business. So what triggers you with entrepreneurship? Why also, I mean, you devote a lot of time to this.
Yeah.
What is it? I mean, you're old, for God's sake. Why?
Thank you. Well, I think it's if you're into it, you find a very sort of sympathetic atmosphere amongst people who really are trying their best, who is really fighting every day. I was reading the newspaper this morning about the girl with an app in the United States who had gone down the drain and was trying again. And there's a number of reports about this kind of stuff. And I find it appealing that people who really want to do some changes in life, they take the chance, and frequently they fail, but they come back again, and they come back again, and they try. And I think that one of the things that we should learn is also that there was a fantastic book, for those who are interested in this, by an American author, a lady who also studied economics. And the title was The Upside of Down. Actually, the upside of the downside, in terms of when you have failed, you basically have learned something. And that is really what the sort of American society is appreciating, namely somebody who is there for the third time. She said in the speech that I was listening to that people love somebody who's been in San Quentin for 40 years and come out and do something with their life. They don't love Donald Trump, who earned or inherited all this money. They may not be true now, unfortunately.
That's where we should stop.
Yes.
So, as a token of our appreciation, you have received school books.
Thank you.
It's a gift, and for you who spoke before lunch, you have also received school books, but it's not for you, it's for children who actually needs them. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Magnus. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time.